Teresa Podell, Prairie Road Organic Seed.
Prairie Road Organic Seed, and it's Teresa Podell?
Correct.
Okay, and talk about the genesis, the inception of this.
So we began as contract growers for other garden seed catalog companies. So we would get contracts from them to grow specific varieties, and so we were mass producing whatever they would want us to produce. And we had actually bred a number of varieties on our farm and ended up marketing our varieties to them, and so they were carrying them in their catalog, and we started thinking, maybe we should be marketing our own varieties. So we started packing our own seed 4 years ago.
That is a very interesting business to get into. Obviously, you grow, you save seed, and that's your product. It's a little more difficult than that, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to take it not only through the vegetative cycle, which is most people's experience gardening, is through the vegetative cycle, but now we have to take it through the flowering process and then actually harvest the seed from all of those varieties. So yes, it does take extra effort.
Is your industry decreasing or increasing? What I mean by that is it's no secret that Monsanto has essentially a monopoly on the patents behind many seeds. I'm looking at the different varieties you have here, and you've got anywhere from 20 to 40 different varieties. Explain the ownership of those, because a lot of people don't understand that is kind of the new world we live in, where if you're growing a corn in your backyard and you want to regrow it, you might get a bill from Monsanto the next year.
Correct, yes. The industry is moving towards a lot of patented seed, and if it's not patented, a lot of hybrid seed where you can't save the seed and replant it the next year, either because of ownership issues or because a hybrid won't grow back true to type. So it won't look anything like what you grew the previous year. So you have to keep going back to the company store to buy more seed. And so yes, all of our seed is open pollinated, so all of it could be saved. We don't have a patent on anything. A number of the varieties were bred on our farm, but we have released it into the public domain. So part of our strategy or our stand is that we feel that seed ought to be owned by the people. All of the seed that we grew obviously has a heritage. Somebody else was maintaining those varieties and saving seed from those varieties, and we're the benefactors from their work. So how can you own something that you didn't originally create?
Is it pronounced Hidatsa?
Correct, yep.
So I'm looking at the Hidatsa Red, originally grown along the Missouri River Valley of North Dakota by the Hidatsa tribe. This bean was introduced by Oscar H. Will and Company in Bismarck as part of his 1915 Pioneer Indian collection. Semi-vining, this productive bush plant will climb up 3 feet if given support. Plump, dark red, dry beans. This is a North Dakota crop, and for $3, I don't ever have to. I can save my seed?
Yes, you can save your seed from that. If you eat it all, of course, it'll be gone. You won't have any seed for the next year. But yes, you can save seed from those beans and propagate them yourselves. So, yes.
So how about the story of the Hidatsa Red? I noticed a few others. They've got kind of it's almost like a history lesson on the back of some of these. How did you collect that information? How did you go about deciding to be able to do that?
Well, in addition to our interest in gardening and breeding varieties on our farm, we're also very interested in what varieties did well in North Dakota. As a seed company, looking back into the history of what gardeners grew in North Dakota over the years is a good indicator of what varieties would do well in our growing environment. And so we went back to the Oscar H. Will Company seed catalogs. So you can find them in historical archives and go through them and read the descriptions that he had in his catalogs about each of these varieties. And so what we did was research some of these varieties and then go back to the USDA germplasm collection and access seed of those varieties, and then trialed them in our own gardens. So Hidatsa Red and Hidatsa Shield beans were actually gifted to us from Native American peoples who had been propagating them and saving seed. So and Oscar Will was gifted those beans by the Native Americans when he started his seed company as well. So the historical part of all of these varieties is just fascinating, and again, a good indicator of what does well here. And one of the trends in the seed industry is a one-size-fits-all sort of trend, where if you buy seed from most seed catalogs, you don't know where that seed was actually grown. And as a contract producer, we were selling seed to seed companies in Colorado, in New Mexico, out on the East Coast, and they were offering them nationwide. And you don't have that information of where that seed was actually grown. So one of the strategies that we've been working on here in North Dakota is to offer seed to North Dakota gardeners, to gardeners in northern climates, that was actually grown in their zone, in their environment that they would be growing their seed. So
native vegetables.
Right. We're trying to provide well-adapted seed and doing the selection work every year to maintain them for trueness to type, because they're open pollinated. So if you're not doing the selection work on them, they start to go wild because they're genetically diverse. So you'll start getting traits that are not necessarily desirable. So if you're not weeding those traits out and maintaining the high quality traits that you want, you'll start to lose flavor, you might start to lose vigor, the desirable agronomic traits that you want. So all of those need to be maintained by constantly selecting those varieties for the traits you're looking for. So in addition to the agronomic traits, we're also selecting for drought tolerance. We don't irrigate any of our seed, so they have to make it on their own. A lot of times we get questions from people, so why is organic seed different? And we tell them, well, we don't have any quick fixes. The plants have to be disease tolerant. They have to deal with whatever insects might be present and whatever stressors might be present. We get a lot of high winds, so we want plants that have strong stems, have strong root systems, so they have good standability, can stand up to the high winds that we're dealing with. So breeding and selecting in the environment that you're in has great value to a gardener.
So you're saying Mother Nature just kind of takes care of itself?
Yeah, exactly. Mother Nature does a lot of selection work for us. For instance, last year we had 3 days of extremely high winds, 45 miles an hour, gusting on up to 60. And our vining crops were in like the 4-leaf stage, so they were very vulnerable, and Mother Nature weeded out a bunch of them. Any that didn't have any strong stems were blown right away, so it just snapped right off. And if they didn't completely break, they were damaged enough where they were weakened, and so then unable to make it. So, Mother Nature is a great partner.
I think mankind is a little arrogant at times. I mean, Mother Nature will just shake us off like fleas whenever she's ready. I mean, to think we're going to try to defeat Mother Nature, that's like the smartest thing I ever heard about water was water management instead of a flood fight. You can't beat water. What are you going to? It'll come back either as rain or ice, or you can only change it. You can only manage it. And so when I look at some of these seeds, this is one of the most important things I believe in the United States right now, is the direction of the ownership and the generational seeds. I think this is one of the least talked about subjects in the United States right now, because everybody needs to eat. All of our plants come from seed originally, and if you were to go and ask the average person on a street, they wouldn't A, understand that over 50% of their food is genetically modified, and B, I don't know, is it 95% of the seeds are owned by one company. So when I say Monsanto, I'm not trying to demonize them. I'm just stating a fact.
Right, and it is a fact, and ownership of seed and being able to save seed and pass that on as a family tradition, for instance. We get people that tell us, oh yeah, our family's been saving the seed from this particular green bean for generations, and we just love it, and they have the seed of it, and oftentimes that seed is no longer commercially available. And if nobody in the next generation is a gardener and a seed saver, it gets lost. And so we continue to lose that genetic diversity, that well-adapted bean that people have been saving for generations. That's just an example of the kind of erosion that we're seeing. And so, we've got 40 varieties right now. It's a very small number in the face of, the vast multitude of varieties that are out there. But it's our contribution to gardeners in our region who are interested in varieties that are well adapted and that are selected for flavor. I mean, why would you garden if it didn't taste good, right? And
are you telling me I can get a cantaloupe to grow in North Dakota? Because I'm like 0 for 12.
Absolutely.
It's so hard to grow cantaloupe for me.
Yeah, these cantaloupe do really, really well. And we're contract growers as well, so we grow for other seed companies, and we've continued to do that. And we grew a melon the last couple of years for another seed company and found that it was, number one, not true to type, and number two, the flavor wasn't good. You'd have a good melon and then the next melon would be not so good. And so we decided to release the melon that we'd been working on for a couple decades, and every melon is really good. We do taste testing every year, so we select like 30 melons and taste test them all and select the very best tasting ones to save seed for our stock seed. So that's our seed for our seed plots the next year. So we do selection work on all of our varieties to save back the stock seed that we will grow out. And so by doing that selection work every year, you're making sure that they're all flavorful, they're all, really good tasting. And so, yeah, we have very few melons that was like, oh, that one wasn't good.
All right, one more controversial question for you. Well, we'll call it controversial because I didn't realize it was. USDA Organic, the symbol. There's some controversy behind that. I've talked to a number of quote-unquote organic farmers that cannot use that label because they can't afford it, because it's a certain percentage of, like 5% of your revenue has to go to this. So they just say, well, we don't use pesticides, we don't do this. Another food distributor, because they get the stuff and then they have to open it up and put it into other packaging, they can no longer use the word organic, so they use chemical-free. So are you running into any hurdles, roadblocks with this USDA organic stamp?
Well, our farm's been certified since 1977. So we've been certifying our farm organic way prior to the time that the USDA developed their standards for organic. And so we're longtime organic producers. We've never had any issues with our certification and the certification process. We have an inspector that comes every year. And here in North Dakota, we're fortunate enough to actually have assistance through the North Dakota Department of Agriculture for helping with the fees associated with certifying your farm. Minnesota has a very similar program, and there's a lot of states that are working on trying to implement that to encourage organic growers, because it's a lot of paperwork. Mm-hmm. And the paperwork is probably the biggest hurdle that a lot of farmers face. Since we've been doing it since organic since its inception, we kind of grew with the paperwork, so the process of it isn't such a shock. But keeping good records, as seed producers, we want to keep good records for our own purposes. We need those records for maintaining high quality seed. So the record keeping is kind of built into the system, so it's not that big of a deal for us. But again, we grew into it rather than all of a sudden I'm going to decide to certify my farm organic. So there are organizations. There's a nonprofit organization in North Dakota called Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Society, and they're set up to help farmers make the transition and for them to deal with the certification issues and all the hurdles, the learning curves they're going to have to go through in order to become a certified producer. So there is help out there. There's information out there. There's financial support out there to make that transition. But farmers need to plug in.
Sounded like I was interviewing Doug Goring for a second there. I mean, I got to be honest, I was not expecting that because it turned into like a hot button issue for a lot of people. They fly off the handle or not, and you were very calm and cool and had a great answer. That was probably the most articulate answer I've ever heard, so thank you. Last question for you. It's more of a micro commercial. Just tell people how they can get your seeds or where you're going to be, and that sort of makes some money.
So this is our third Pride of Dakota show. We're also going to be doing the Pride of Dakota show in Bismarck, which is the big finale for Pride of Dakota's holiday showcase. Then we also have an online website, so you can order from us through Etsy or through Local Harvest. And we, through our own website, you can even mail order us in order form. So if you're not comfortable with online shopping, back to the roots. Yep, use U.S. mail. Yes, we are at Toshi Products. We're at Baker Nursery here in Fargo, Sydney's over in Moorhead, Sydney's Health Food Products. So yeah, you can, and we just had another wholesaler approach us yesterday, so we're working out an agreement with them. So yeah.
Teresa, thank you.
Well, thank you.